It's that time again. The annual conference of the American Society of Ag Consultants, otherwise known as ASAC, is going to be held in Fort Myers, Florida, this November 4th and 5th. Kurt Covington is one of 9 professionals who will address the conference. The other speakers who will cover a wide range of topics represent Florida Farm Bureau, Florida Citrus Commission, University of Tennessee Institute of Agriculture, National Ag Law Center, Risk Mitigators and Advisors, Tyler Associates, as well as the lead economist for dairy at CoBank, and myself, Chrissy Wozniak from North American Ag. The day and a half of presentations will be followed by ag tours on Tuesday afternoon at Echo Farms, one of my favorite places here in Fort Myers. Attendees will experience farming at its most creative, with unique demonstrations, plants, and techniques being used to help farmers and urban gardeners in developing countries. A second tour at Echo will showcase simple technologies that can improve food, water, and shelter for millions of people. A third tour of a hydroponic grower is also being planned. For more information and to register, visit www.agconsultants.org. That's www.agconsultants.org. See you there. Welcome to North American Ag Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak. My guest today is a crop protection product manager with WinField United. This agronomist focus is on understanding the complexities of protecting crops from pests and diseases and recommending sustainable solutions that benefit farmers. And WinField United is the seed, crop protection products, agriculture services, and agronomic insights business of Land O'Lakes. From seed to supply chain, their comprehensive product and technology offerings promote efficiency in every facet of farming. From southeastern Minnesota, I'd like to welcome Jon Zuk. Welcome and thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Chrissy. I'm so happy to be here.
So you were raised on a dairy farm near Willow River, Minnesota. So can you tell me a bit about your background, how you came to work for WinField, and how being a farm boy has benefited you through your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the farm boy aspect is probably the biggest part of it. But I grew up on a dairy farm, so and also worked on a dairy farm all the way through college. That helped support the college effort there. But I was always told and always thought like, hey, you can always come back and work on the dairy farm. Just go get smarter, go get an education. And I made that through graduate school. Got a degree from the University of Iowa in biochemistry, and really wanted to still get back into agriculture. So that led me to pursue being an agronomist. And I guess 14 years later, here I am today, a product manager for WinField United. So I think I've applied all those learnings and then some all the way through my so far career, and that's been great for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Really good base for what you do, for sure. So tell me about WinField United and why Land O'Lakes chose to found it.
Okay, so I think what we really have is Land O'Lakes is a dairy-based cooperative. So we have 3 factions, actually 4 to Land O'Lakes currently. There's the dairy foods business, there's the Purina, the feed business. Then there's WinField United, which is the crop nutrients, crop protection business. And then recently we've added Truterra. So that's the soil health and the initiatives around the carbon market, all those sorts of things. So I think we really have tried to come together. Land O'Lakes has really tried to come together to tie all the things that a farmer would need or look for in a cooperative and base that on that platform.
Right. Yeah. That's very useful. And I often think of things in terms of cartoons. So if you think about a bug on a crop, and you release a bird and the bird eats the bug, but then there's too many birds, and then you release the cats, and then there's too many cats, and you release the dogs, there's too many dogs, then you release a tiger and it eats all the dogs, but also eats all the humans. So because biologicals are living organisms, how do they work, and how do we know it's the right treatment and safe for the whole food supply chain?
Yeah, absolutely. You reminded me of a book I read to my kids. It's called There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly.
Yeah,
And then
that's
it just
right.
keeps going from there and so on and so forth. So it's interesting. I mean, biologicals, I look at them a few different ways in you ask how they work. Well, it depends on which biological you're asking about to actually technically describe how it works. But in overview of that is I always like to say biologicals really find their niche in making crop efficiencies. So if you think about how a crop can become more efficient, maybe it's more efficient in nutrient uptake from the soil. Maybe a biological makes the crop more efficient in moving some of the components around it throughout the plant. Or even maybe later in the season, the biological it makes the plant more efficient in maybe its cell division and helps the cells. Maybe these are cells that are making a kernel of grain become bigger and larger so that the plant is more fecund or has more offspring. All those sorts of things are what biologicals do and just making the plant efficient. So I look at biologicals as kind of being the key to unlock the door to make that plant be more efficient, or maybe in this day and age, maybe it's more like a cheat code, right? How do you find the cheat code to get unlock higher yields or more efficient plants?
Right. That's good. Great points. And so we're talking about they can be bacteria, right? And what else?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Or is it always
Yep.
bacteria?
Yep. So biologicals, I think that's like a broad overview.
Right.
We split them up at WinField United. We try to split them up into three different sanctions or kind of categories. So the biological market, as it's said, is consists of three things. Those are what I would say true biologicals. Those would be living things. So those could be bacteria. Primarily, the products we find in that space are bacteria, but they could be fungus. They could be other things as well. But those are the true living organisms. Then there's biostimulants. Biostimulants would be categorized as any kind of I guess, output from a living organism. So that could be a plant extract, that could be an amino acid, that could be something, a byproduct from animal production market, whatever that might be, that would be the biostimulant. And then there's PGRs, and PGR stands for plant growth regulator. I look at them as the specific hormones that are used in the plant to target functions that that plant would then do. So I think that's how we split them up into three categories. And that whole umbrella is called the biological space.
Wow. That's fascinating. And what makes biologicals, like the whole market, a confusing space for farmers?
Yeah, so I think the confusion lies within the inconsistency of a response.
Okay.
And I believe we're still looking for how do we optimize that consistency. But one of the things, it's not that the biologicals don't work, because the minute I say they're inconsistent in responding, where he goes, well, see, they don't work, and that's why I don't like to use them because I can't optimize my response. What I would say is maybe we quite don't know the question in agriculture of what to ask of what efficiency do we need them to unlock for us. And a lot of times that efficiency might change by the season or by the crop or by the timing. And so when we just try to take one biological and put it into a crop system and say, well, did it work or didn't it work? I think we also have to ask the question, well, when we put it in the system, was that one of the limiting factors that it needed to unlock for that crop to get the response? And so that's where we're focusing a lot of our research and our efforts to identify maybe where we can be a lot more efficient in placement and positioning of those products.
All right, well, that makes sense. And the EPA strictly regulates the use of crop protection products, pesticides. Are biologicals or biostimulants, are they regulated by the EPA the same way?
Yeah, so that's interesting. Most of the time, the biologicals and I guess the biofertilizers are regulated more from the state side and more like think of a fertilizer product. So there's a lot less regulation, there's less time involved, less money involved, less hurdles. So a lot of times we'll see more products in that space.
Okay.
If a biological product wants to make a specific claim, like a pesticidal claim, then they do have to be regulated through the feds, and that's a similar process to what we are familiar with, like the pesticide and the labeling. So there's it depends on what the claims are wanting to be made, but for the most part, the biostimulants and just the straight biological markets there's not as many hurdles to overcome as there are for other pesticides.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. And what does WinField United do to help its retailers and then, of course, ultimately the farmer decipher biologicals? How do you help?
Yep. So one of the things that we like to do is there's a lot of information in this space and there's a lot of products. And how do we actually identify the opportunities that our retailers and farmers can take to be advantageous in getting a response? And so what we put together to try to make it simple is we call it the biological directory. So
Okay.
I think of it, I jokingly internally, I call it like the biological menu. Like if
Right.
you're looking at a menu, tell me, put a little star next to a product and say, well, this one is the special for today, or it does this certain thing. And so we like to first off categorize the products and then talk about here's what they specifically do. Because I think as growers, we need to get a lot better at saying, this is my problem. What does a product need to do, instead of saying, here's the product, now it's going to address all these magical things that we're maybe not too sure actually happen, or maybe they're not a limiting factor in your system. So I think we start with that biological directory to start narrowing down maybe what the retailer or grower might be looking for in a specific instance, and then potentially using that to identify a product that would fit the need or the situation.
Ah, that makes sense. And can you tell me about the cool, like unique way that WinField United tests biologicals and biostimulants?
Yeah, absolutely. So we call that, and we've coined that the biological testing platform. Now that's a pretty unique name, right?
Yeah.
But we split that up into two different portions. There's the controlled environments or greenhouse portion, and then the in-field testing portion. So the controlled environments portion, we're just getting that up and going, but that consists of entire greenhouse that's dedicated to a special sensor that can scan the plants real time on a hourly basis if we want to detect things that the human eye can't necessarily see. So as you can imagine this, we can have a whole greenhouse full of plants. We can have these sensors going over those plants on an hourly basis, or maybe every 4 hours, whatever that is, and trying to pick out the differences between these products. That's going to help us potentially screen the products and maybe give us an indicator of what they're maybe doing in the plant. So then when we take them out into the field and do the testing, we can position them and maybe in an environment to test for those components. Okay, so that's the infield or controlled environments way that we're testing it. So we'd like to screen the products first. Once we screen those products, we bring them out into the field. And when I say in the field, that's what we call our answer plot system. Okay, so
Okay.
we have our answer plot system that's mainly testing in corn and soybeans, where we would put the products in a different scenario compared to like products, but in different scenarios, whether it might be high nitrogen environment, low nitrogen environment, and then test for yield. So do we get the components that we need to get higher yield? And then try to get the answers of, well, why did it give us a higher yield? Was there a difference in nutrient movement? Maybe that's a tissue sample. Was there something going on in the soil? Maybe that was some type of soil sample. So we try to evaluate those products. And then at the end of the year, we release the information and data to try to say, here's the products that performed and maybe why they did or how they did.
Right. Really interesting. And do you have some specific examples of biologicals or plant growth regulators that have made it through this rigorous testing and got that
Yeah.
stamp of approval?
Yep. So that's an interesting question. Everybody wants to know, okay, great. You got this great testing platform. What did you guys learn from it?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was, so this has been going for 2 years now. We've tested 41 different products from 29 different companies. So pretty extensive, at least for 2 years, in getting up and going. And what we've done is we've launched one external product through this platform. We're having 4 commercialization discussions around other products. But then we've also looked at some of our own and existing portfolio as well. So I'm just talking about the new products. It doesn't necessarily account for what we already had currently existing, because we wanted to test that too. So I know you asked for specific products. The one that we did commercialize just recently is a biostimulant, and that is called Yield On. We position that primarily on corn at tassel timing, and that's just a combination of plant extracts that are really supposed to help the plant move the sugars from the leaves to the grain, and then make that grain kernel bigger to help enhance yield that way. So that would be one specific product that we moved here in the last 2 years.
How is that applied?
So that is applied foliar. Typically, we tested it with a tassel fungicide. So that timing would be with a tassel fungicide application on corn.
Okay. Wow. And then what are some tips for farmers who are looking to select biological and maybe try it out on their farm?
So I think I always like to start the conversation off with the growers is, what exactly are you looking for the product to do?
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking for do you think you have issues with your soil? Do you think you have issues with maybe nutrient uptake? How is your fertility level? We
Yeah.
have to start getting all those things right before we can start making a recommendation. If the grower can say, here's what I want the plant to do, I need help with nutrient uptake, then we can start going and using that biological directory to try to find the product that works best for him or her.
Right. And then with the crazy environment we've been through over the last few years, the cost of inputs and commodity pricing, like it's just been a mess kind of, but positive so far. What advice would you have to producers coming out of this, I guess?
Yep. So I think what I always like to tell producers to do is don't be afraid to try something. Okay. So do trials on your own farm, see how it works. Everybody's system is different. Everybody's approach to managing that system or getting yield out of that system is different. Mm-hmm. So just because we have a testing platform doesn't mean that what we see is exactly going to be the same that you see. So I think that's important. Test them and vet them on your own farm and in your own system first. The other thing that I would recommend farmers do is triangulate your decision. So if you're working with one individual and they're saying, hey, this is the product, or here's what I think you need, always use a triangulation point. So use another individual, have multiple points of contact to make sure that that decision that you made on that product, number one, has the data behind it. It belongs to the crop that you're actually wanting to use it on. And maybe have a couple different people that are smart or know something in that environment that can give you hints about how to make that work better. So I call it the triangulation method. Use a bunch of different points of contact to try to find the right decision.
Yeah, great advice. And I have one last question for you. So why do you personally serve the ag industry in this way? And what's your greatest passion in all of it?
Yeah, so I like doing this. I mean, the biological piece, as you can imagine, we learn stuff every single day in biologicals and in agriculture in general. It's every day is a learning curve for myself and for all the individuals. So I think that's why I feel the need to serve and save the message to the public and then also support the research and the environment that WinField United creates to the growers.
Amazing. Well, thank you for what you do. Yes.
Thanks, Chrissy. Appreciate the time.
Yeah. And where can people find you?
So I can be found primarily, I just say email or call me, but social media contact through the WinField United social media. The other thing that we like to support is our retailers. So if you need help with anything that I talked about today, contact your retailer and they'll help you get in touch with the nearest WinField United representative.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for all of this information. I feel like it's less confusing, definitely, and much more clear at the end of the conversation. So thank you so much for that.
Yep, you're welcome, Chrissy. Have a good day.
Me too. And thanks to all who are watching or listening. If you want to learn more, the links are provided in the show notes. I would love it if you subscribe to North American Ag Spotlight on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram channels, or to the podcast, which is available on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day. Our newest podcast by North American Ag is called What Color is Your Tractor? The stories behind the ag brands you love and the ag brands you love to hate. Hosted by me, Chrissy Wozniak. We take a deep dive into the companies that have built modern agriculture. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform. Go to whatcolorisyourtractor.com. Available on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.